Dave Chappelle's a goddamn hero. He's got balls, and I love The Closer. And I love The Closer not because I'm against trans people.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for watching the Jason Chambers podcast. Every week, we talk to some super amazing people with super amazing stories in the cryptocurrency, sports, and entertainment space. And today, super special guest. If you watch podcasts, if you like comedy, and if you've ever seen a movie that's made you laugh, you've probably seen this guy in it somewhere hidden in the background or right in the middle of the DVD cover. My good friend, comedian, actor, dad, awesome human being, Bryan Callen. Bryan, thanks for coming.
Fucking all-around athlete, the whole thing, dude.
Yeah, world champion at life.
World champion in life. I'm a world champion in life, ladies and gentlemen. What's going on, buddy? You're looking good. You still look like you're grappling all the time.
Yeah, that's an oxymoron. You're looking good. You still look like you're grappling all the time. That usually means you've got cauliflower ears, some fucking black eyes.
No, you look tough. You look tough.
I look tough.
I like it.
Oh man, tough was. I thank you. First of all, tough has not ever been my forte. Like I talked about this before because you're in the entertainment industry, right? So like when I was doing the show and my like agent would send me out because they would see like breakdowns for like UFC fighter guy. So they would send me out to these fighter auditions, and like my in sync looking ass shows up like I'm just whatever. I was so discouraged. I'd go for like an audition for like MMA guy, and I know I'm not booking it because they're looking for Tate Fletcher. And if you guys don't know who that is, Google Tate Fletcher. He books.
Well, that's the thing. The thing about Hollywood is that when you think you're the right guy for it, and you get into the waiting room, and you see that all the other people look way more like the guy, and you agree with that, you're like, all right, I'm in the wrong fucking business.
Yeah, and it's arbitrary too, man, because like I've had casting director friends like literally have people come in that crush auditions, and I'm just like, how come you didn't book that guy? They're like, oh, he looked like my wife's ex-husband. Fuck that guy. Like their mind is so usually made up before you even walk in the room. They don't give a shit.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. In fact, usually what you want to do, you get a part, I think, by changing their mind, by surprising them and showing them a character they didn't think existed. Like I got a part one time, the guy was supposed to be 6'4", 230 pounds. And they were like, you're not right for the part. And I said, I know, but if I walk in like I am 6'4", 235 and I act that way, that's way funnier. Oh. And I got the part because they never thought of it that way. That's brilliant. Sometimes, that's how you do it sometimes.
Man, so did you start doing stand-up or did you start doing some acting and then get into stand-up?
Acting. I formerly studied acting in theater school in New York. And then in college, and then I was in an acting, like sort of this really cool acting class in Los Angeles that you had to audition for, and all these famous people in it for 10 years. So I studied it as I worked really hard at it, like really hard. And you still get 7 yeses and 1,000 no's. It's fun, but yeah, I never really liked acting, to be honest with you. I think about it.
That's funny, man. You're out of all the people that I've seen that are stand-ups and act, I think you arguably work more than anybody else in the movie industry, but I think a lot of comedians have a difficult time. They're funny, right? And then they get these development deals, but they're not necessarily understanding the tools, and I'll put that in air quotes, to act.
It's totally different. It's a totally different art form. And it's not, I don't care if you can do a monologue in front of an audience. When you have to act, it's just a completely different consideration. And if you don't have somebody who can help you navigate that, and you haven't practiced it and you haven't made a lot of mistakes, which I have, I think it's much, because without sounding, it's like you're competing against people like me who really studied it under really good teachers. And so, it's not that I'm better or more talented. I just understand how to navigate it and surprise you. So, and I almost always fail at this, but I might be able to do it 10% more than you will, or 20% more, or even because I have technique, because I've done it long enough. And I know that when I walk into the room, they go, oh, that's a medium white guy. Who gives a shit? There's nothing about me physically where you're going to go, oh, but so I have to do something. I have to change your mind about who I am. I got to do something different and weird, and I got to improvise. And if you don't do that, then you're throwing yourself in with just essentially chance. But there's going to be somebody who comes in and changes their mind, because they're all going to go, wait, I didn't know the character was gonna do that or what. I never thought of writing the character that way. You know, I played an assassin one time. I didn't get the part, but the guy gave me a part for something else because I had to play this assassin and I had to kill somebody he didn't want to kill. And I walked in and I decided, you know, what if this assassin is, because when you play an assassin, right, he's got a gun and he's pointing at the guy and he's being all, you know, he's all being all menacing. But I played it. I said, I'm going to play this character in a very sympathetic way. And I'm going to play the character as if I may, instead of killing this mark, I may turn the gun on myself. I may just kill myself. I might be done with this line of work. And the only way out for an assassin is feet first, right? Jail or feet first, but he's going to go out feet first. And when I put myself in that position, it was a subtle difference, but nobody else had done that. So that's how you get their attention. I don't know why we're talking about acting right now, but sometimes you get lucky and you come up with an idea that you can kind of follow all the way through, and it'll pay dividends. I guess that's what I'm saying. That's the best way to define, I think, why some people work and other people don't.
So you went to, you went to New York to study acting. What was your first introduction to stand-up comedy? How did that come into your life?
I made a speech at a wedding, and my girlfriend at the time became a very famous director. She's now the biggest director in Hollywood. And she said, "Hey, dumbass, stop trying to be Robert De Niro. Stop trying to be a brooding, deep actor. You ain't that, okay? You're a jackass. You got up and made a speech and everybody laughed. And oh, by the way, you make all your friends laugh because you're the funniest guy we know because you're just a complete silly goose. And that's all you think about. So start being that. Stop trying to be a man. Stop trying to be like a tough guy. You're not. Stop trying to be a great athlete. You're not. Stop trying to be, deep and artistic. You're not, but you are a complete jackass. And you're really good at that. So stand up comedy. That's what she said to me. And it changed my life.
So did you start writing stand up after that, or was there a longer process involved?
Yes, I started writing, but I was so terrified. Like I didn't think it belonged to me. Like the greatest surprise of my life still is the fact that I can make people laugh. Like I can't believe I do it. Like I can't believe that I'm able to. I still can't believe it. Every time I do a special or every time I record an hour of any kind, or I throw it away and I have to start from scratch. And I'm always like, well, there's no way I can write again. How am I gonna? I've written everything I can. I can't think of anything. I have no ideas. And somehow you keep showing up, and I come up with ideas, and then I'm doing them, and people are laughing, and I even forget how writing it. That's what's so beautiful and so fun. It's kind of this wonderful discovery. But I didn't know. I didn't know I could do it. I started, you know what I started doing? I started writing jokes and I started telling them to my friends. I said, I would act like I'd heard it from another comedian. So I'd be like, I heard this comedian do this joke, and I would do it and people would laugh. And I was like, fuck, maybe I can do this, so.
Would you say Mad TV was what changed the trajectory of your career, or was your first big break? No, you're like, fuck that.
Yeah, show. It was my first. It was my first. No, it was my first break, but I didn't really belong there. I wasn't experienced. Frankly, I was the least. I'm not trying to be modest. I was the least talented person in that cast, and I had never done sketch. I didn't know. I was just working on instinct, and I didn't work very hard because I didn't really. I felt so insecure being there, and I just wasn't that good. I don't know. So it wasn't my first break. And what happened was I did a couple other shows, and then I realized that I basically spent my time auditioning and hearing the word no and sitting in traffic for the next 10 years. I always worked, I always made enough money, but I never had to have another job. So I think that is a bit of an accomplishment, but it was always like, I just would do whatever I could. I took all the jobs. I said yes to everything, but for the most part, people say, well, how'd you make it? Well, it's like, dude, I spent my 20s and my 30s and even some of my 40s in traffic, just hearing the word no all the time. I mean, for real, waking up in the middle of the night going, I'm a failure. I'm 35, I'm 40. I'm not working, all that stuff.
Did you ever go through a stretch where you were like, maybe I shouldn't do this anymore? It's been a dry spell.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Well, okay, my whole career, including right now. Fucking and I'm not even being dramatic. You know, it's so funny because 8 years ago, I looked at this big director, who's a friend of mine, and I said, I'm quitting acting. I'm fucking done. And I called Rogan and I said, you had the right idea. I'm done with acting. I hate it. I can't take these no's anymore. And then along comes a show called The Goldbergs, and they're like, hey, my agent goes, they want you to, play this kind of gym coach. There's an audition for it. I think they offered it to me. And I played it the way I played my father, basically. I played my father in tight blue shorts. And that turned into a job for the next 7 years. And then it turned into my own TV show because the character got so popular for 2 years. So it's like, right when I quit, I was working way too much. Right when I truly decided I'm done with this bullshit, I'm just going to podcast and just do stand up. My podcast becomes huge, and then I'm working too much, where I can't even do enough. I can't doing stand up on the weekends is a nightmare because I'm trying to schedule. This is how it works. The minute you give up on something, somehow it happens for you. But it only took me till I was 42, 43. Come on, 44. I don't know how old I was.
Between stand up and like the podcast and movies and stuff like that, what do you find is the most rewarding? If you could only pick one thing to focus on. Stand up. That live reaction.
Well, I have to write it. I have to be original. I have to surprise you, and I have to surprise myself. The process of coming up with ideas that you haven't thought about. The reason you laugh is because I surprised you. It's a magic trick, right? I got you thinking about something. I got you think about something the way you haven't thought about it before. I might be saying something you can only think and not say at work, or it's just something that kind of surprises you. Go, oh fuck, I didn't see that coming. Mm-hmm. Well, and to do that, I have to do that. I have to do that to myself first, which means I have to. But the hardest thing about being creative over the long term, the hardest thing about continuing to create and be a real quote unquote artist, or let's just say, fuck that. Let's just say when you're in the business of original self-expression, okay, you have to keep shaking up your own paradigm. Okay, so Jason, like when you roll with a high level jiu-jitsu guy and you're in the same gym for a year, okay, or you're sparring with a high level guy, you start learning what their patterns are. You start being able to predict, if I keep my hand up here, I know he likes that check hook or whatever it is, or I know omoplata and whatever, and leg lock is his thing. So as long as I do this, that, and the other thing, I can neutralize him. And pretty soon you guys are at a stalemate. And the reason he was catching you before is because you hadn't seen it before. Okay. Now you guys are basically at a stalemate in the gym. So all of a sudden now, the guy who can keep changing his technique, the guy who can keep surprising the other guy in the gym, because you guys know each other so well, that's the guy that gets better. That's the guy that continues to improve. The guy who's working on things he was bad at, the guy who's doing the kinds of moves and perfecting the kinds of moves and patterns that make him uncomfortable. Maybe he loves playing guard. Now he's only mounting and working on mounts, but taking beating for 4 months to get there, or a year. That's how you get better at something. When you isolate and you focus specifically, and I think creativity is exactly the same way. When I have to, I can't be preoccupied with the same question as a comic, which has always been, what is masculinity? What's the meaning of courage for me, probably. I got to change. I got to ask a different question. And I have to answer that question differently. Otherwise, I'm repeating the same theme, and pretty soon it'll start to be the same joke. I don't want to be that kind of person.
What was the first?
So that's a responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah. What was
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it totally does. I briefly, it's funny. I have a very, very similar story. Like, I did stand up at my wedding on accident, right? Like, I started making fun of everybody there. My wife's bridesmaids, I was like, they're whores. And I just kind of went on a tangent, but I tried stand up once, man. And it was like the most nerve wracking thing. And that's from someone who's done entertainment shit, hosted stuff, fought professionally, fought some tough dudes. It was fucking nerve wracking. It was the most terrified I've ever been in my life because there's nobody else
Yeah.
there. Right. And also like, if you're fighting, you can gauge how good you're doing by, this guy's in the UFC. I'm doing okay with him. And I beat him. You have some level of comfort, but stand up, you're fucking jumping out of an airplane with no parachute. What was that first time like for you?
Literally, I mean, I have it on video somewhere. I couldn't move my face, dude. I was so afraid. I was so fucking afraid. Have you ever been in a real fight where it'd be like if I had to fight you in a real fight and I knew I was going to take a beating because I had no idea how to navigate that situation, right? Like if you ever been in a real fight, you can train as much as you want. If you don't know the guy up in front of you, I couldn't feel my legs. Like you can't feel your legs. You can't feel your arms. You're like, all this stuff I train in a classroom or on a mat, this is real shit. He might have a knife. He might be a fucking fighter. He might be way better. I might die right now. All that shit that goes on in your head. I swear to God, I felt that way, but worse. I mean, when I had to do stand-up, the first year of stand-up, it ruined my entire week when I knew I had a show coming up. My whole week would be ruined. Right? I was so terrified all the time because it's just like, what happens if you're not funny? And usually you're not funny when you're starting out. Right. So
when you come up through that like stand-up circuit, did you come up like the other guys, just kind of the smaller clubs and then it's the bigger clubs, or did you have some sort of a unique story?
I was a little bit lucky. I was a little lucky because I had already been an actor that had a little bit of I was a little bit of a draw just because I was an actor and I had done some work. So I was able to go right into clubs. I had a really good agent. So I was able to start headlining. I'd always been writing. I was always writing and always coming up with stuff. So I never really had to go I featured for Artie Lang a couple times. But after that, I ended up going right into being a headliner.
Was that more pressured? You think that was Baptisim By Fire that made you better? Or do you think being able to cut your teeth on like a local circuit would have been, I mean, obviously I've seen you perform a dozen times. You're fucking hilarious, obviously. But like, what do you think? How do you think that affected you?
Baptisim By Fire. Yeah. But I got to be honest with you. Like, I think I was put on the earth to be a comic. Like, I don't think I'm good at anything else. I'm okay at other things, but like stand-up is the one thing that I was made to do, So I at home so quickly. I have this joke where it takes a long time to get funny. I was like, well, no, I was funny the first time I ever did. I had good instincts. The only thing I ever did, if you look at the way I grew up, I was raised all overseas. So I moved to a different country every year and a half, 2 years. So the only way to make friends really quickly is to make your friends laugh, man. I was thrown into a different country and a different school every year and a half, like a different continent. So you're a kid and you want to make friends, man. You gotta be don't be the last guy picked on the team and be a jackass. Make them laugh. They want to be around you. So I learned how to seduce an audience at a very young age. So in a way, I've been practicing that weird, peculiar skill literally from the age of 3.
Yeah. There's a lot of parallels with like the guys that I find really funny and the guys that do well in like any other sport, really, right? Like especially martial arts, because like I got into martial arts because I got picked on and bullied. And like most kids that, before it was this cool thing where you could make a bunch of money, you were doing like, you were inspired by movies, or, you were like, oh, this guy's going to kick my butt. So I got to learn how to do some self-defense. And then that's also one of the reasons why I think like I developed like my other defense mechanism before that, which probably added to the fact that I was getting my ass kicked a lot, was I thought I was really witty. So like I could outrun the bullies, and then I'd talk shit from a block away, and then they'd catch up at school and I'd have to talk my way out of it. So like, do you think that there's something that develops from the really good people that are witty and that kind of have that off the cuff, that it becomes a social skill, right?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, like, for me, my sports were, I started with judo and then I was a wrestler, and you're alone out there on that mat, you're alone. And then I went to college to wrestle and then hurt my back, and I saw these guys kicking and punching, and I was like, I want to learn how to kick and punch. So I got into I got into sort of like kickboxing and competitive taekwondo, all that shit. But back there, they had point fighting and then they had full contact.
Yeah.
So my teacher was a hardcore Korean guy. So I fought in all the full contact tournaments. And when I say full contact, by the way, everybody, you didn't punch to the face. You can kick to the head, but you didn't punch the face. You punched the body. And so I'm not a tough guy, believe me. You wore chest pad. It's not MMA, okay? I'm a bitch. But it is, but it was competition, and it was, you are alone. And so much of the reason I was doing all that is I wanted to be tough. I didn't want to take shit. I didn't want to be bullied. And I was never going to be tough. And I'm just not, that's fine. But even that lent itself to my comedy, because it's funny that I try to be tough. It's funny that I'm trying to wrestle with Brendan Schaub, who can squeeze my head off my body. That's all part of the comedy. Being vulnerable and being a mantelope, not a manter like you, that's fun. But you're look, Jason, you have always had this. I know you flirt with this idea of stand up, and I think you should do it because you probably have the same disease I do. Part of being, I mean, you're athletic and strong and really good, but you don't feel like a tough guy.
Right. That's what my wife keeps telling me. Yeah.
That's why you got into being a tough guy. That's why you became a really, you're a disciplined guy. So you're disciplined enough to fucking get really good at jujitsu and all that and MMA. But, that's not how you feel. You'd way rather probably be when you're probably your most, that Schiller quote, man is never more himself than when at play. And play is that thing you do. It's not hookers and an 8-ball. Play is that thing that you would do for its own sake. The thing you do for free because it makes you feel so alive, because it makes you feel like you're contributing to the world, you're connecting, because it gives you adventure, all those things. That's where you're the most yourself. So I think stand-up, that's why it's so fulfilling when I'm on stage or when I'm writing. I'm never more myself. That's when I'm really myself. That's my authentic self.
One of the things, I appreciate the compliment, man, that I don't look tough, but no, with the I'm totally fine, man.
I would love to look like you. I'd love to have that hair.
Oh, geez. So, one of the things that, oh man, I totally lost my train of thought. See, I'm thinking about you with my hair, and that's just fucking it up. Oh, so
you see what happens?
Yeah, it's there. There's like 3 things you touched on: the wrestling, Schwab, and the podcast. But no, so one of the things that I think have hindered me from doing stand-up, just from my own armchair perspective, and I know a lot of people out there, I mean, like the guy that directed freaking one of the movies you were in, Hangover, yeah, like Todd Phillips said he's not, like, he doesn't want to do comedies anymore because of this fucking cancel culture and stuff, and like everybody out there is offended now. You have to be woke. Like, you used to be able to make look at Eddie Murphy Raw. That was the funniest shit. You imagine like trying to be a white dude in the Midwest, having your take on the Eddie Murphy Raw. You would be fucking ostracized. Now people go see you.
Concert. That's how old I am.
Yeah, it's bananas. Like, but people go see you. They know what they're buying into. But like, do you think that there's a different, like, for me, I'm always worried about, like, if I go do an open mic night somewhere, in the back of my head, I'm like, this is the shit that makes my friends laugh, right? But if I say that to somebody else, am I gonna get fucking? Has
that's
that
never a consideration?
No,
never
not even something you think about.
Absolutely, I don't give a fuck about these people, about these tyrannical left-wing ideologues. I don't give a fuck about they are only interested in destruction. They're not interested in progress. They're interested in tearing down everything that makes this country, in a lot of ways. Look, this country has problems. We definitely do. We definitely have a legacy of injustice and inequality, and we still haven't come to terms with that. Absolutely. Up until 1958, there were over 20 states where it was illegal to be married to somebody of a different race. That's 1958, not that long ago. So I could lecture you on the inequalities and the stain of American history. I could also tell you why it's important to teach the real history and not whitewash it. I'm all about that. But let's also please give some respect and some credit to the founding fathers for solving the political problem with a bicameral legislature and with the Bill of Rights and something called the Constitution. It's incredible. And the very words that we use, like equality and feminism and equal, those all came out of the intellectual architecture that was, for the most part, developed in the West. So, there was a larger point I was trying to make, but so I can lecture you on the value of the left-wing perspective. That's fine. But this has become tyranny, man. This has become, these people are talking about how you can't follow, the Wokeville has rules you can't fucking follow if you're a comic. Words are violence? Really? Words are violence. That's somebody who's never been punched in the fucking face and has no idea what real violence is, okay? And then words are, now, if that's not enough, silence is violence. So you can't even be silent. Now you can't be neutral. You can't think, well, it's a complicated situation. Let me wait and see. No. So I don't give any fucking credence to the 8 people on Twitter who are probably, some of whom are probably Russian bots trying to fuck with us. Who knows? I don't give any credence to that bullshit. I just, if you're in the business of original self-expression, you are supposed to disturb people. Dave Chappelle's a goddamn hero. He's got balls, and I love the closer. And I love the closer not because I'm against trans people, not because I'm against LGBTQ2S or whatever it has become now, plus. I'm not against that. But I believe in original self-expression, freedom of speech, and I believe words should disturb. I believe words should make you uncomfortable. That's the whole point of art. Otherwise you got fucking, what do you want? What do you want me to do? Smash watermelons with a sledgehammer?
Yeah.
No,
for sure.
Fuck off.
That's great, man. That's great. I had
never allow that. No fear in your workshop, brother. If you want to be a comic, speak your goddamn mind. Now educate yourself though. Here's the other thing I want to say. I never made gay jokes. I never did. I made gay jokes at my own expense. But I never used the F word and stuff like that because I understand. I'm old enough to remember when being gay, just as an example, just being a gay man, was actually physically dangerous, where you could get killed on the street by a group of thugs for being gay, for walking with a boyfriend, or even looking like you're gay. So I remember that. I'm old enough to remember that shit. When I was in college, that's how it was. So I think it's also, if you're going to be a comic, important to educate yourself on why the significance of some words to some people. Okay? Because when you call somebody, like if you use certain words, you got to remember that those words to those people, they might have been hearing those words while they were being stomped to death on a street. So I'm not interested in, that's not funny to me. Once that somebody explained that to me, a gay man explained that to me, I was 21 years old. I was like, well, I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to make people feel bad. And I don't want to be, if that's the case, oh, fuck. So sometimes it's good to educate yourself. Sometimes it's good to change your mind and listen to people that you kind of inherently disagree with, who are different than you, because they're going to give you a perspective you never thought about.
Yeah.
And that's important in your workshop too.
Yeah. And I think that, like, you go back to like the 80s, right? The F word, right? Like you'd hear that all the time in the 80s. That was like kids would josh each other.
80s, 90s.
Like,
how about early 2000s? Dude, we all said it to each other as guys. I'd be like, bro, that shirt is effy.
That's effy.
Like,
that's effy.
You know what I mean? I mean, I would have made fun of the minute I saw you.
Right.
I mean, you called each other that like it was almost a term of endearment.
Right. Well, do you think
yeah.
It just feels like there's a fine line, right, between like respecting that and overcorrecting, like I think we've done as a society. It drives me fucking nuts when I see these like 17-year-old kids who know everything because they just reposted some other TikTok video about like suffrage and shit. And it's like, first of all, if you care about a cause, get off your fucking ass and do something about it. Just because you sit there and you can stand on someone else's soapbox and talk about some shit doesn't make you an activist. It makes you an attention-seeking whore.
That's part of being young. That's part of being young. Being young is to be romantic, right? I have this joke about that. It's like being young. When you're young, you say things like, let's change the world. When you're older, you're like, change the world? Let's start with making your bed, dude. You know what I mean? And then if you're older, you don't want to change the world. You're like, you say boring shit like, well, I guess we should tackle campaign finance reform. You're like, what? It's complicated. There's a book you should read. It's like,
you convolute that enough so that no one really knows what the fuck change the world means anymore. When you're a kid, it's, let's get equality. It's so simple and sniper. As you're older, it's levels, man. There's fucking reptilian people. Like it's a long talk. You don't want to get into it. Just eat your ramen.
I don't need you. It's like slavery's bad. Yeah, no shit, dude. What do you want, a medal? Yeah, I agree with you. I agree that slavery is bad.
Yeah,
all right.
We can all get on. We can all get on that page, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm anti. I'm not into babies getting kicked in the face and slavery. Those are the two lines I draw. I'm not. I'll fight you over those things, I guess.
And that's the thing too. Like, I think that there's a fine line between like, I can respect your opinion, and people have a hard time understanding that it's okay to respect your opinion, but I don't have to agree with it. And that's where people like, it fucking blows their mind. If you like want to,
Jason, it's okay not even to respect someone's opinion. Well, I don't have to respect your opinion. A lot of opinions are just not rooted in any kind of thought, reason, or homework. So fuck your opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one.
Yeah.
So I don't even think I have to. The American experiment works because I'm allowed to express and even shout my point of view at you. And if it makes you uncomfortable, that's your problem. Because it makes you uncomfortable and because it makes you want to cry doesn't mean I'm committing violence. You cannot conflate the two. Violence is when I physically beat the fuck out of you or whatever, not when it leaves a mark. Sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never harm me. You cannot conflate the two. Listen, if you say that, then anything I say, so Jason, if I say to you, you're a little fat, you need to lose weight for your own health, that's not going to feel good when I say that. Or when I correct you and I say the stuff you're doing isn't very funny, you got to go back to the drawing board. It's going to hurt your feelings. But if I can't say that to you, you're not going to get better. So You have to risk making people feel uncomfortable. And because that's the only way people improve, change their minds, reevaluate their own position. This is all from John Stuart Mill, who was, the great American philosopher. Dude, I'm an intellectual, okay? You guys writing this shit down?
I haven't stopped, man. Luckily, I'm recording it. We're just going to transcribe all this and start sending it to these high school kids. This should be a course. But no, one of the things that I personally I look at, right, is, and I've talked to my friends about this, and the pronoun thing is something that I personally struggle with, because in my point of view is there's male and female. And now if you say I identify as a penguin, I respect that you feel that way, and you have to respect that I find it fucking hilarious. So I think that there's kind of a balance there, right? I mean, so that's the thing that I have an issue with when some people, that becomes, hey, look, I'm sorry, you have to call me they. I'm like, do I have to? What's your name, Mike?
So this all comes from the French philosophers like Derrida and Michel Foucault. And I'm not going to go into that shit, but that would be the idea that whenever it starts with this non-binary thing they talk about, so Demi Lovato comes out and says I'm non-binary, so I don't identify as man or woman because she's a mess, and that comes out of literally comes out of Derrida. Derrida had this terrible, he's the worst philosopher of all time, a complete blowhard and totally useless. But Derrida, anybody who teaches Derrida is also useless. But I can't believe there are actually professors that specialize in Derrida in college. They talk about a useless job. Like, you are a fucking zero. But anyway, Derrida had a lot of influence, though, especially among our sort of left-wing thinkers and stuff. And one of the things he said is he was obsessed with equality in terms of when we as human beings are binary in our thinking, right? So in other words, we tend male, female, hot, cold, yin, yang, all those things, right? There's a duality to our thinking, right? Silence, noise, all those things. And Derrida said when you have that logos, when you have that sort of overarching mentality, you are automatically going to favor one over the other. It's how the human mind works. So if I say male, female, you're inherently going to favor one over the other. You're going to have a built-in prejudice that's natural. So Derrida, in his stupid little mind, said, let's have that we shouldn't be binary, and there should, the way out of that is to say that reality is what you say it is, basically. He said there is I don't want to offer any kind of thesis. He was like, he stepped out of the responsibility of having any kind of a statement by saying, here's what I believe, and then he would erase it with his other hand. It's a fucking, don't ask. It's such bullshit. I'm already exhausted talking about Derrida. I'm already exhausted I mentioned his name. But the point is the trans community or the intellectual community that was obsessed with gender, they hijacked that Derrida horseshit and they apply it to their philosophy. That's what they teach in academia. I'm one of the few guys who actually reads all this shit. because I'm just obsessed with how insane human beings can be. So that's kind of what we're talking about with all these pronouns, with this strange pronoun, the pronoun Nazis that are not really living in the real world, because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I can't keep up with you. I literally can't follow the rules that they're putting down. And by the way, if you are saying then that I can identify as a woman, even though I have a beard and I'm a giant man I'm just a man and I put on a skirt, or I don't even put on a skirt and I say I'm a woman and you have to call me a woman. Okay. I can make a statement right now and say, I am a woman, I'm trans, and I don't have to do anything to my body. And the Hollywood Reporter will now congratulate me for being a woman and will refer to me as she. So will the New York Times, so will the Washington Post, and everybody else. If that's the case, if you're saying I can do that, then please explain to me why I cannot also say, why can't I identify as a 30-year-old? And why can't I also identify as African-American or Native American? I've always wanted to be Comanche. I just think I've read something on the Comanche and the Apache. I think they were an amazingly fierce warrior, society. And I've always wanted to be one. I don't know much about it, but it just makes me, I like saying Comanche. I would love to be all like, what do you say? What are you? I'd like to be like, I'm 30 years old and I'm Comanche.
Yeah, that's
I should
sexy.
be if you can explain why I can do that with sexuality, but I can't do that with age and with my race, please explain it. Because I'm waiting. If you could give me, because you've got to give me some infrastructure and a platform that I can more into, some betting I can anchor into, so that I can, because that's how we formulate a belief system and a philosophy that you can build off of. True or false?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But you can't do that. So that's where we're at now. That's what I don't have any problem if you identify with as a woman and you want me to call you, I will call you she. I have no problem with it. So I don't want to make you feel bad. So between
the limited time you have to do anything and you're reading all these books, you've got the podcast still going on. How's the Fighter and the Kid going?
It's going great, man. I'm doing the Fight Companion tomorrow. On November 6th. Me, Shab, Josh Thompson, and Chris D'Elia, and it should be very fun, very funny. So tune in.
We will, man. And a lot of people now, everyone's like got podcasts, right? I mean, Joe was such a fucking front runner. I tell the story. Like I remember when Redman and he fucking Joe sent the cameras, I think to Eddie and to Uncle fucking Joey, Uncle Joey Diaz, and fucking James.
Yeah.
And then you said Redman, like they were like clicking her, because I think that evolved from Rogan doing his video blog. He did the Comedy Store every weekend, and Redman would edit that shit. But I remember watching the first one of them. I remember watching the first one and stuff, and just being like, who the fuck is gonna? They had snow or some shit going on. I'm like, who's gonna watch these dudes just talk? It's crazy, and it's insane because he was such a front runner, right? Like it's fucking nuts. So how long did it take you to see traction? And when I say traction in your podcast, I mean, everybody wants to do a podcast, right? I mean, everyone wants to, what a fucking great life. You can sit down and talk to your friends about some shit you like, and you're recording it, and maybe somebody listens, maybe somebody doesn't. How long did it take you guys to really see any traction before you went, okay, this is going somewhere?
Rogan was the one who got me to do my first podcast. Rogan was like, you got to do a podcast. I was like, no. And I finally did. I did the Bryan Callen show, and I got some listeners because Rogan would promote it. And then I did 10-minute podcast with Chris D'Elia and Will Sassa, which now has a cult following, which is, we did a bunch of those. And we did the 10-minute podcast. And then I meet this fighter named Brendan Schaub. I thought he was really funny and a great storyteller. And I said, let's do a podcast. Let's call it The Fighter and the Kid. I call myself the Kid because I'm old, and I just think it's cool to call yourself the Kid. I give myself nicknames. It's so sad. And I gave myself the nickname Man Dragon, all that stuff, because I'm a loser. And so, but Brendan, some of this is just chemistry. And then so the Fighter and the Kid was the first podcast I started to really make real money at. And a lot of it was because Brendan has a mind for business, and he's relentless and a grinder. But we just had this amazing chemistry, man. It was just two guys who just somehow, I don't know, man, we just get along so well. We're really close. And I think people can feel that.
So you're coming out here in December. You got the podcast. You're doing the show. What else is going on? If anything can possibly fit into Bryan Callen's life.
I know. I got the podcast. I got Conspiracy Social Club, which is another podcast I do with Sam Tripoli on Rockfin. And he hits me with conspiracies and I debunk them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's WWE, dude. We just start shouting and fighting. It's great.
Oh, that's
and
fantastic.
I love him. And we just did our 100th episode, and it's actually got quite the following on Rockfin. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we actually.
So,
I think
that's been a huge success.
We just Vinny's the producer, one of the producers. Vinny, we just talked to Rockfin, right? Yeah, I think Rockfin's kind of like that's like where you can have content kind of akin to what's another fucking platform?
They're awesome.
Patreon or something.
They're
it's
awesome.
like Patreon. So you like Rockfin over Patreon?
Yeah, Patreon, but will censor you a lot of times if you start talking about conspiracy shit. So Vimeo won't allow you. But Rockfin is about freedom of speech, so you can just say the craziest shit. But you can't do that on YouTube. If you even say anything about YouTube, they call it misinformation, and you can get docked. So sometimes you have a podcast. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but Sam is a hardcore one. So they don't like that shit, and they'll ban you. But it's so much fun because I just argue with them the whole time.
That's fucking fantastic, man. Well, I appreciate you taking some time. We'll put up all those links to all your 10,001 fucking places that we can find you, man. Instagram looks like you're on a lot
buddy.
too. I really appreciate you taking the time, bro. Hit me up when you're out here in December. We'll catch up for sure in person.
I will. I'm sorry if it's a little too intellectual and boring. I tend to go off on these fucking tangents.
No, I love that shit, man, because like it's hard, like when there's that inherent delay between like when you're doing it. Now, if it's in person, we can jaw jack more, right? But like when there's this fucking delay that happens, I find it's easier to like just kind of dig into who the fuck, because look, everyone knows you're fucking funny, but like I'm interested. I've known you for 15 years. It's just a matter of like, I didn't know you fucking wrestled. And like that to me is interesting. That stuff to me is really compelling.
Yeah.
And I mean, we already know you're sexy, so what the fuck else is there to learn?
I'm very sexy, dude. In person,
very
with my
sexy.
Height, fuck, dude.
That's fantastic.
All right, dude. Well, listen, I appreciate you, man. Come out and see me in Boca. Let's hang out.
For sure. We'll do, brother. Thanks again. Peace.
All right, man.
Cheers.
Later.
Later, bro.